It's a privilege to be with you ladies tonight, and I want you to hold on to your seats and fasten your seatbelts because we're probably going to take a really quick flight through my life.
Oh.
And so, before we get started, let's pray. Lord, I just ask that you would use the words that you have for me to speak to these ladies tonight. Lord, I just pray that you will be the one that is lifted up and glorified, and not myself. I thank you in Jesus' name, amen. Okay, Sandra already kind of gave my bio, but I'll add a little bit to it. As she said, my name is Ellen Helfers. All my legal work will say Barbara Helfers because it's Barbara Ellen Helfers. I've always gone by Ellen all my life, but the legal, they want your first name. And I am a mother of 5 grown, married children, living kind of all over the world. My oldest is still back in Warsaw, where we have lived the last, well, I can't say that. We moved there in 1981, but we've spent probably a good 20 years or more away from there on the mission field. And then the second one is in Guatemala, and the third one is also with the mission board. They spent 7 years in Brazil, but now her husband is the head of the financial department of Brazil Gospel Fellowship Mission, and so they are in Springfield, Illinois. And the fourth one is in Hillsville, the closest to you, Hillsville, Virginia, and he's a nurse. And then my last one is in Nairobi, Kenya. So that's my children. I have 20 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild on the way. So that's briefly a look at my life in a way. And we spent, Norma and I had 53 good years together, and most of our life was centered in missions. So tonight there's 2 things that I want to share with you. First is leading, and the second is legacy. Okay, so they'll be easy to remember, leading and legacy. For leading, you probably have heard this phrase before. It's taken out of Genesis chapter 24 about the life of Abraham when his servant was sent to get his son Isaac a wife. And the phrase that I'm kind of lifting out of that passage is, I being in the way, the Lord led me. And I think that is a good summary of our life. I being in the way, the Lord led me. So both Norma and I attended Appalachian Bible College. Today it was Bible Institute back in those days. And he came my second year. He was ahead of me in age, but I was ahead of him in school. And so back in those days, we were assigned seats for family style, and we were assigned seats, and he sat right across from me. And so you couldn't date for the first 9 weeks. And so, you just flirt. And so at the end of 9 weeks, when we began dating, I called my mother and to tell her that I'm dating this guy. Her first question to me was, is he interested in missions? And he was. he came to know the Lord through reading Jungle Pilot. And his salvation and his call to missions were almost simultaneous. Because of the book he was reading, definitely it impacted him in missions. So after he finished his schooling, he went to Bob Jones, graduated from Bob Jones. I went to Cedarville College, graduated from Cedarville. And when I graduated from Cedarville, which I'm still ahead of him, only in education, we got married. And then I went to join him at BJ. When he finished with his schooling, we came back and worked in my home church. That was a really rough, growing situation. But the Lord took us through several rough, growing situations. You know, if you're preparing for ministry, you might as well just expect it, that the Lord's going to do his work in you. Not that he ever quits, but he's going to do his work of purifying your lives and getting you ready for what he's called you to do. And even though we did not find an open door for missions, I mean, we started seeking, that was our heart's desire, and the Lord did not open the door for several years. We were involved in church planting. Actually, Norm did he loved home Bible studies. And so he had, in one little country church we were in, he had home Bible studies in like 3 different places, towns. And the one town, they wanted to start church, and Ted and Sandra came and took that over and started the church in Newark, Ohio. And so then we went to a small town of New Concord, Ohio, and were involved in the church planting there. And then Norm, after, I don't remember how many years, but a few years, he thought he really would like to get his master's degree. So we went off with 5 kids to do his master's. And at the end of those years, I can't remember how many it was now, we didn't know what the Lord had for us then. And then one day we received a letter from Sam. And she said, our mission, GFF, Gospel Furthering Fellowship, has need of a teacher in Nairobi, Kenya. Oh dear, my husband's heart started fluttering with excitement because that was his dream, to be able to train pastors and or Christian workers, I should say. And his verse for his ministry was 2 Timothy 2:2 about training or giving to, I should look it up to quote it exactly, but it's giving to faithful men so that they may be able to train others also. And so that's what our life was in Kenya. It was a small Bible institute, and he was involved. Basically, he was the one that was involved in teaching. I did some audiovisual class, which totally outdated today. Totally. Then we were there for 10.5 years. We ministered there. And then we came back to the States, and we never lost our vision for missions. are our focus for missions. And after a short time of Norm teaching in Christian school, we found out that some classmates, particularly of Norm's, were in Beijing, China. And Norm had always wanted to go to China. And so they had a need for help. And believe it or not, it was a Christian school in China. But only expats could attend that school. It wasn't open to Chinese at all. So Norm kind of worked assisting the principal. I did some teaching of English as a second language because there were Koreans, there were other nationalities in the school. And then at the end of that year, we actually had gone for 2 years. We came home for the summer, and our friends called us and said, I've been dismissed, and you can expect a call too. And we received a call, and they asked my husband to come back as a principal, and Norm said, no way. So our friends went back in other positions. They went back to China. We didn't go back right away, but eventually we were in the way, and the Lord led us back. We loved working with the Chinese people. And first of all, we were down in southern China. We went out with tent makers. And we were in southern China for that year. I taught in elementary school. Norm was teaching in a private university. And then the next year we were transferred up north to a city called Dalian. Dalian's not too far from the North Korean border. I mean, it's a few hours. It's not like just... I did go visit and took a boat ride, and I could reach out and touch almost. I was that close to the North Korean border. But that was very interesting. The first year we were teaching in a private school which was connected to the one that we had in the south. And after that year, Norm said, no way am I teaching in this situation again. This is going on YouTube. The situation was that the school was a private school, which meant it was with the very elite Chinese who could pay for education, and they were spoiled rotten. That's the reason why they weren't in the other universities, because they hadn't really studied and their parents had paid their way through. And they were still paying their way through. And most of them would end up going into the businesses of the parents, but it was very hard to teach them when they didn't care about learning. So we transferred into the government school, Dalian University and Technology. And that was like night to day. And those students were very diligent, and they wanted to learn English. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, both of us were teaching on the university level at that point. And besides our teaching, besides the job, we had a group of that was on our team, and so we were the leaders of the fellowship of the team. And then there were some other expats that joined us as well for our Sunday morning and then Sunday evening services. You couldn't get more than 20 in a group, or the government became very suspicious and would check in on you. But and our group did grow a little bit. When you counted the kids, so we divided, had kids in another apartment, and then our adults in that apartment. So besides our Sunday group, we had Bible studies for Chinese. And I had a ladies' Bible study with some of my Chinese English colleagues. One lady that was born again, and she drew other of her friends in. And we went through I think it's 23 or maybe, anyway, we went clear through the series of firm foundations. I don't know whether you're familiar with that, but it takes from Genesis all the way through the Bible. And then Norm was teaching, he started out just teaching book studies, the Bible, books of the Bible. And then he had some interest in some of his guys wanted to learn Greek. And so he taught Greek to a few of them. And there's one of them who has not only continued with his Greek, but he's learned some Hebrew. I know that because I was showing Sandra, I had a little video that he put on Facebook of his son, his son's maybe 3, 4 at the most, and very musical. And so they were practicing this word when the video starts, and Noah says, it's Hebrew. It's a Hebrew word that he's teaching his son. It's amazing. So anyway, some seeds got planted, and it was a lot of fun in the classes. At the holidays, you could present you could present Christmas from Christianity standpoint, and students were curious. Like Norm he wore one of those like rubber, like bracelet type things, and it had an arrow coming down and the cross, an arrow going up. It seems like there's something missing there with both. But anyway, it's a symbol for the gospel. And being curious, then they would ask him, he could present the gospel to him. And even his ring, he wore a sterling silver ring with an ectus on it. And so he loved doing, showing the fish and how Jesus is part of that, how that was used. So actually, we went back to visit. After we left, we were in China together. All of our years together was about 7 years. We went back to visit, and one of my classes asked to meet with us. And one of the girls in the class came up and told me that she had been in the States with her boyfriend, and some group had been working with him, and he had gotten saved, and she got saved while she was there too. So obviously she was aware of our Christian connection to be able to share that with me. But so we don't know. We have no idea of how many other, may have come to the Lord. So on your Christian radio station, they're doing Love Comes Softly by Jeanette Oak. And I had picked up the series, video series at one point. I think I got it at Costco, if I remember correctly. And so part of what I did in my classes was I was given a curriculum by another missionary, and it kind of gives the U.S. history, our values, and different things. I mean, what we wish they still were. And anyway, I would play I would show one of Jeanette Oak's videos, because it is a very good picture of the frontier times of our country. And oh, the kids loved them, and they can go into their search engines and so on and find those kind of things, which, you know, are illegally copied, of course, but, you know, they continued watching as many of them as they could find on their internet. Let's see, so after China, we were, of course, at retirement age, but our goal all forever was, you don't retire in the Lord's work. You know, you go till you can't go any longer. And so when we came back home, we found an organization that was sending out trained teachers for short periods of time to minister to pastors in countries where they did not have opportunity to be trained. And so the first one Norm went on was to Uganda, and it was just a 2-week. Well, at that time, our son was in Kampala in Uganda, and so I didn't travel with the team. I went separately, and so I was with my son. He was teaching at a university about 45 minutes to an hour out of the city. And then then he came and spent another week with us. Well, we found out that one of the missionaries at the school was going to be going on a short furlough, and so we came back, and it was like, we had his house, we had their furniture, we had their car, everything was set to go. And I thought that, you know, maybe I could help out around some, well, they lassoed me into teaching right away, and so I loved that. I taught some Christian aid courses, some counseling courses, and so on. And then, so that was one school term. Well, then that couple came back, and so the next school term, we had some friends. He was American, married to Ugandan, and they were going to the States, so their house was going to be empty. The only problem is they were getting rid of almost everything, so it was interesting. We lived very, very frugally as far as furnishings and so on. Minimal. Yeah, we were very good minimalists. And, but I loved it. And for a car, our son had a friend who had left, and he said, we can use the car as long as it's not sold. You know, I guess he had been trying to sell for a while. I hadn't sold. 3 weeks before we were to leave, the car sold. And I mean, without a car, it was impossible to live, really, in that situation, because we were not near the city. And so John's the apartment that he lived in, one of the guys was going to Ethiopia for 3 weeks, and he said we were welcome to use his car. So the Lord goes before, you being in the way, the Lord leads. And so that was our life. Okay, so, we also, we went to Serbia. That was the last trip that we made, and it was soon after that we discovered Norm had cancer. We decided to, rather than, they wanted to do surgery and of course chemo and all of it, and we decided no, it's not the route we wanted to take, and we took an alternative route, and he lived a very quality life for 2.5 years, and then when things metastasized, it went really fast. So he passed last August 4th, and so it's like, okay, Lord, what's next? And I just want to say that the Lord's grace was so abundant through those weeks and that time. My church was wonderful, and I don't come from a big church, but they were just wonderful in individuals, bringing meals, sending notes, dropping by with a plant. Also, my neighbors were also just wonderful. And so I just could see God's loving kindness through, we talk about being God's hands and feet. And certainly his people were being his hands and feet in ministering in such a wonderful way. And my kids too were great. My daughter that is in Springfield, her family drove over at least 3 times. She came by herself as well. And then my son in Virginia came up 3 different times too, in just a matter of a couple of months. And before Norm, before he was even diagnosed that his cancer metastasized, we had a girl and her mother come up to the door one day and ask, "Are you guys going to sell your house?" And they said, "Well, definitely not now, but I'll keep you in mind if that time comes." And so she was rather persistent. She sent a letter with her name and telephone contacts and all. And so when Norm passed, I went ahead and contacted her and said, "You still interested in buying a house?" And she said she was. And so I sold the house, and that was October 15th. My son in Virginia came in and picked me up and moved part of my stuff down.